America. I'm Eric Ham and we're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And today we've got the latest on strikes in the Caribbean, a show of unity in Beijing, and Trump brushes off rumors of his demise. All that and more coming up, but first, a look at the latest headlines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visits Denmark to meet with Danish, Nordic, and Baltic leaders and discuss additional support for Ukraine in fending off Russia's invasion. Gunmen opened fire on a vehicle in Pakistan's northwestern border region, killing 6 civilians. The attack took place on the border with Afghanistan, where sectarian violence has flared in recent months. Thailand's acting prime minister submits a petition to dissolve parliament after the largest opposition group backed a rival candidate to lead the country. The decision could see the kingdom hold new elections before the year's end. The UK government announces plans to ban high caffeine energy drinks to those under 16, citing growing evidence of harm to children's physical and mental health. And British oil giant Shell announces that it has abandoned construction of one of Europe's largest biofuel plants in the Netherlands as it focuses on fossil fuel business. We begin right here in Washington, where President Donald Trump has declared that Chinese President Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un were conspiring against the United States. His comments come after the 3 leaders met in Beijing during China's Victory Day parade. Writing on Truth Social, the president questioned whether China would acknowledge the American soldiers who gave their blood to help liberate the country during World War II. The president also tried to strike a cordial note, wishing the Chinese people a lasting celebration, but the message quickly turned confrontational as he asked Xi to offer what he called his warmest regards to Putin and Kim as they conspire against the U.S.
The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong Un as you conspire against the United States of America.
The Kremlin moved quickly to defuse President Trump's remark, with a senior aide telling Russian state television that the U.S. president was likely being ironic when he accused the 3 leaders of plotting against the U.S.
President Trump said on social media, "I hope he was being ironic there, that he was passing his greetings to President Xi Jinping and asked to pass through him his warmest greetings to President Putin and President Kim Jong Un, and he said, once again not without irony, in my opinion, that these 3 leaders were allegedly conspiring against the United States. I would like to say that no one has been conspiring, no one has been plotting anything, no conspiracies. Moreover, no one of these 3 people even had such an idea. Moreover, I can say that everyone understands the role the United States, Trump's administration, and President Trump personally are playing in current international affairs."
The spectacle unfolded in Beijing, where Xi Jinping presided over a massive military parade marking the 80th anniversary of Japan's surrender during World War II. The event was designed to showcase China's military might and emphasize solidarity at a time when global tensions are in fact running high. Kim Jong Un, marking his first trip to China since 2019, was seen shaking hands with Xi Jinping, while Vladimir Putin, who had recently attended the SCO summit in Tianjin, stood alongside the Chinese leader once again. In his address at the parade, Xi Jinping declared that China was unstoppable, warning that humanity now faced a stark choice between peace and war, dialogue and confrontation, win-win cooperation, or zero-sum conflict. The Chinese leader went on to say his nation will never be intimidated by bullies.
Human beings live on the same planet and we should work together and coexist peacefully. The world should never return to the law of the jungle, where small and weak countries will be bullied by major powers. At all times, we must adhere to the path of peaceful development and firmly safeguard world peace and tranquility.
Now, President Trump previously rejected suggestions that the warming of relations between China, Russia, and other nations poses a challenge to the U.S. on the global stage. But now the president's about-face suggests those prior statements were in fact hollow, and that the triumvirate of Beijing, Moscow, and Pyongyang standing together is a much bigger concern than previously thought. And now to growing tensions in South America, where President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that the United States conducted a strike against a boat allegedly transporting drugs from Venezuela to the United States in the Southern Caribbean. Speaking at a White House press conference, the president shared a few details promising more information would follow. Later in a social media post, he said 11 people, allegedly members of the Tren de Aragua or TDA gang, were killed in what reports describe as a rare U.S. military operation in the region.
Earlier this morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists. The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics, heading to the United States. No U.S. forces were harmed in this strike. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America.
President Trump also shared a video on his Truth Social platform, which appears to show a long multi-engine speedboat at sea as a bright flash burst over the craft. The boat is then briefly seen engulfed in flames, and the video in black and white is not clear enough to confirm if it carried 11 people or any drugs. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the president has made it clear he will not allow the U.S. to be flooded with cocaine, fentanyl, and other drugs. The vociferous critic of Maduro, Rubio, vowed to use the full might of the United States to eradicate drug cartels.
The president was very clear, and that is we destroyed a drug boat that left Venezuela, operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization, which is what these are. And he's been clear that the days of acting with impunity and having an engine shot down or a couple drugs grabbed off a boat, those days are over. Now we are going to wage combat against drug cartels that are flooding American streets and killing Americans.
The Trump administration designated the TDA gang a terrorist organization earlier this year, with President Trump repeatedly alleging that Maduro in fact controls it. However, Venezuela's communications minister claimed on social media that the video shared by the president was created using artificial intelligence.
It seems Marco Rubio continues to lie to his president. After leading him into a dead end, he now offers him an AI video as proof. Enough of Marco Rubio's encouragement of war and attempts to wash President Donald Trump's hands of blood.
The military strike marks a potentially significant escalation in the U.S.-Venezuela standoff. It's also the first offensive since the Trump administration deployed warships to the Southern Caribbean. And reports suggest the U.S. Navy has deployed 3 guided missile destroyers and 1 guided missile cruiser, with 3 amphibious assault ships expected to enter the region this week. Now, Washington has also reportedly deployed a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine and has been flying spy planes in the region to gather intelligence. The strike comes just a day after Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro said he would constitutionally declare a republic in arms if the U.S. attacked. Maduro added that his country is at maximum preparedness and ready to respond to any forces deployed by Washington.
8 military ships with 1,200 missiles and a nuclear submarine are targeting Venezuela. This is an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral, and absolutely criminal bloody threat. They have wanted to escalate what they call maximum pressure, which in this case is military. And in response to maximum military pressure, we have declared maximum preparedness for the defense of Venezuela.
Now, so far, there has been no response to the U.S. strikes from Maduro, but since the reports of U.S. deployment emerged in late August, Maduro has sent Venezuelan warships and drones to patrol the coastline and launched a drive to recruit thousands of militia members to bolster defenses. He's also accused the U.S. of using the deployment as a precursor to regime change in Venezuela. Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega said on Tuesday that the deployment of U.S. warships to the Caribbean is not about the drug war, but an attempt to quote-unquote overthrow governments.
A small boat was hit by a couple of missiles torn apart. 11 people traveling on it were killed. And this is how they prove that those people were drug traffickers carrying drugs to the United States. Are they doing it to intimidate Latin American governments? They do it to intimidate the people and to try to overthrow governments. They have more technology than anyone else. They have more police than anyone else. But why do drugs still enter the United States? Because there are major drug traffickers there who run the business, and they have bought off the authorities.
So with regional leaders voicing concerns, the Southern Caribbean remains a tense flashpoint between Washington and Caracas as the world watches what could become a defining moment in regional tensions. And now from Latin America to the Middle East, escalations between Israel and the Houthis continue this week, as Houthi forces said they hit a cargo ship linked to Israel with drones and a missile in the northern Red Sea on Tuesday. Now, this is the latest in a string of attacks over just the last few days, and a Houthi military spokesperson said their drone and missile units targeted a vessel accusing the ship of violating a ban on entry to Israeli ports.
The drone unit and missile force, the Yemeni Houthi armed forces, conducted a joint military operation. This operation targeted the vessel MSC Aviv, which violated the Houthi decision to ban entry to the ports of occupied Palestine and was linked to the Israeli enemy. The attack, carried out in the northern Red Sea, using 2 drones and a cruise missile, successfully struck the vessel directly.
The Houthis also said drone strikes inside Israel were also successful, claiming to have hit Israel's military headquarters in Tel Aviv, a power station, and the Ben Gurion airport and the port of Ashdod.
The drone unit of the Yemeni armed forces carried out 4 military operations, targeting the Israeli enemy's general staff in Tel Aviv, the Hadara power station, Lod airport, and the port of Ashdod. By the grace of God, all targets were successfully hit.
The Israeli Defense Forces, however, are giving a different account, saying Houthi forces launched 2 missiles at Israel early on Tuesday, but both disintegrated over Saudi Arabia. They said no interceptors were fired and no warning sirens were sounded in Israel. And later that day, the IDF said its Air Force intercepted a drone launched from Yemen before it entered Israeli territory. Now, the conflict between the Yemeni Houthis and Israel have worsened in the past few weeks. In fact, on Thursday, Israel killed the prime minister of the Houthi-run government in an airstrike on Sana'a, along with several ministers. Then on Sunday, Houthi forces raided UN offices in Sana'a, detaining at least 11 staff members and seizing property. And on Monday, the Houthis said they struck an Israeli-owned tanker near Saudi Arabia's port of Yanbu. However, there's no independent confirmation of damage to the ships or Israeli facilities. Maritime sources and international patrols have not verified the claims, but since 2023, the Houthis have carried out repeated attacks in the Red Sea. The group says its campaign is in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. The ongoing attacks have disrupted shipping lanes in the Red Sea and sparked global security concerns. And as the strikes continue to play out from both sides, the Middle East remains on edge, with peace looking more and more distant than ever. For days, hashtags have declared President Donald Trump dead. Doctored photos fueled suspicion, and silence from the White House only led to more talk of a possible cover-up. The internet buried Donald Trump before the truth could even come out. And then on Tuesday, the Oval Office cut through all the noise, and the president appeared alive, defying and calling it all fake news. But even proof of life couldn't silence the storm, because it seems in this new age of digital deception, even reality can be doubted. Our next report has more.
For days, the internet swirled with shadows. Whispers turned into hashtags, hashtags into headlines. And a single question echoes louder than the rest. Is Donald Trump alive? The speculation spread online. From grainy photos to manipulated images, every detail became evidence. Every silence a signal. And then on Tuesday, that silence broke. The Oval Office's lights flickered on, and there stood the 79-year-old president, speaking, smiling, and declaring the rumors as fake news.
Well, it's fake news. You know, it's so fake.
On Tuesday, reality itself was put on trial, but not before the damage had been done.
I did numerous shows and also did a number of truths, long truths, I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own, pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff.
I'm glad it's
Well, it's fake news. You know, it's so fake. That's why.
For almost a week, the digital jury had already delivered its verdict. The hashtag Trump is dead surged through timelines. 104,000 mentions. 35 million views, a wildfire of speculation fueled by nothing more than fragments. Some claim that Melania Trump was seen at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. Others pointed to an ambulance outside the White House. But it turned out to be an old photo recycled to fit the story. Even the American flag at half-mast was twisted into proof of a presidential death. In truth, however, it was lowered to honor the victims of a school shooting in Minneapolis. Still, the theories only multiplied. A zoomed-in picture of Trump, claiming it showed a deep line above his eye that indicated a recent stroke. The speculation continued even after the president fired back on Truth Social. And even as Trump stood in the Oval Office, the scrutiny sharpened. His hands, his hair. Social media users zoomed in on his hands, claiming they were of two different colors. The bruising on his right hand, sometimes covered with makeup, sparked fresh doubts. Another nail in the coffin was the president's late arrival at Tuesday's press conference. Several social media users raised doubts and asked, why was Trump late? Trump's health has been making headlines since a bruise on his hand was spotted at several occasions. The White House confirmed last month that the discoloration on Trump's hand is due to chronic venous insufficiency.
In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70.
Officials insisted that the president was in good shape, and Vice President J.D. Vance echoed the same views in a recent interview with USA Today. But he also said that he would be happy to take over if a terrible tragedy happened, unknowingly adding fuel to the fire. On Tuesday, the irony was inescapable. The man who has jumped to similar conclusions now stands accused by it. For years, he has relentlessly cast doubt on Joe Biden's vitality and mental fitness. And he did not miss the chance to renew the attack.
You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape.
As a president, Trump has benefited from the internet, using social media to spread viral messages. And now he is coping with a tough online audience that dissects every photo, every gesture, every pixel. When Donald Trump finally dismissed the rumors, the digital machine barely paused. Within minutes, a false post on Blue Sky claimed the White House had announced the president's death. And the cycle began again. Donald Trump faced the camera and proved he was alive. But online, his health remains on trial. Because it seems in the age of algorithms, even the truth struggles to survive.
The fight over Google's power has reached a crucial moment. Back in 2020, U.S. regulators accused the company of crushing competition online. Billions were spent to make Google the default engine on iPhones, Android devices, and browsers like Safari and Firefox. The government wanted sweeping penalties, including forcing Google to sell Chrome. That demand, however, was rejected, but Google must now share search data with rivals, stop making exclusive deals, and face years of oversight. With artificial intelligence transforming the way people search, this could decide the balance of power in big tech. Our final report lays it all out.
Google has avoided the harshest penalty in a landmark antitrust case, but the company now faces tough restrictions on how it runs its search empire. The ruling stops short of forcing Google to sell off its Chrome browser, but it demands sweeping changes that could reshape online search in the years to come. The case began in 2020 when the U.S. Justice Department accused Google of abusing its dominance in search. Regulators said the company paid billions each year to device makers like Apple and Samsung, as well as browser companies like Mozilla, to make Google the default search engine. In 2021 alone, those contracts cost Google $26.3 billion. Prosecutors argued the deals locked rivals out and created an illegal monopoly. Then in 2024, a U.S. court agreed, ruling that Google's business practices violated antitrust law. And the latest decision focused on what the punishment should be. The government asked for extreme remedies, including a ban on default search contracts and even a forced sell-off of Chrome. But the judge refused, saying a divestiture would be messy and highly risky.
After 2 complete trials, this court cannot find that Google's market dominance is sufficiently attributable to its illegal conduct to justify divestiture.
Instead, the ruling now imposes softer, but still significant restrictions. Google can no longer sign exclusive deals that shut rivals out of iPhones, Android devices, or browsers. It may still pay for top billing, but competitors must also be given room to compete. In addition, Google must share parts of its search index, the vast database of web pages behind its results, with qualified competitors. The order also addresses artificial intelligence, a fast-changing space where Google is trying to stay ahead of rivals like OpenAI and Anthropic. The company is barred from forcing device makers to bundle its AI apps in exchange for lucrative payments. It also cannot cut exclusive AI deals that freeze out competition. For the next 6 years, a technical committee will monitor whether Google complies. Critics say the penalties do not go far enough. DuckDuckGo CEO Gabriel Weinberg dismissed the data-sharing requirement as a nothing burger, arguing that Google can still use its monopoly power to hold back rivals. Advocacy groups compared the ruling to letting a bank robber keep the loot. You don't find someone guilty of robbing a bank and then sentence him to writing a thank you note for the loot. Similarly, you don't find Google liable for monopolization and then write a remedy that lets it protect its monopoly. Google, however, claimed the decision avoided dangerous overreach. CEO Sundar Pichai argued that the U.S. government's original proposals, especially the idea of selling Chrome, were so far-reaching, so extraordinary, that they would harm innovation and unfairly benefit competitors. The company welcomed the judge's refusal to order a breakup, though it said it is still reviewing the details of the ruling.
Today's decision recognizes how much the industry has changed through the advent of AI, which is giving people so many more ways to find information. We have concerns about how these requirements will impact our users and their privacy, and we're reviewing the decision closely.
But the fight is far from over. The Justice Department is considering an appeal, and Google itself plans to challenge parts of the order. In fact, another antitrust trial targeting Google's online advertising business is also underway. Meta, Amazon, and Apple face similar lawsuits, making this a critical moment for big tech as a whole. For now, Google keeps Chrome and billions in contracts. But the walls around its search monopoly have been weakened, and with AI reshaping the internet, the company's future dominance is far less certain than before.
That's all we have time for today, and from all of us here at First Post America, we thank all of you for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching.